The 1.3 handling patch has released for F124 and I've been spending a bit of time just getting used to what's changed and what needs to change with car setups. But now I've had a bit of time and I'm fully up to speed with it. Here is my recommended Bahrain car setup updated after the 1.3 handling patch. The patch has eliminated a lot of the kind of really pointiness of the cars, a lot of the oversteer, making them feel a little bit more understeer happy. So we're going to have to adjust our original car setup to really fit this new style of driving. Kicking things off with the aero setup, I have increased the front aero and decreased the rear after the handling patch. This creates a much bigger gap between front and rear wings, allowing for a more responsive car, and this will eliminate a lot of the understeer that was added after the update. Go with 36 on the front and 26 on the rear wing aero. For the differential, I've set the on throttle to 40, and this is a touch lower than our original car setup, but traction is a touch harder to find after the patch, so decreasing the on throttle diff can help a little bit when you're accelerating out those slower corners. If you can handle a more oversteer happy car, try increasing the on throttle setup slightly and it should give you a little bit of a performance gain. Set the off throttle diff pretty neutral at 55 and the engine braking at 70%. After the update, we can opt for a much higher engine braking setup, and this will help in a few ways. First off, it naturally slows the car down a bit faster and it also boosts our ERS recovery during a race. Now, since the update, a camber setup of left-left is almost always beneficial. This is the route that pretty much every time trial setup went, and it can now be echoed across into race setups. Tyre wear can be managed at most tracks using tyre pressures, so a maxed out camber, which means all the way to the left, will help with much more performance. Then set the toe to 0.1 and 0.2. Increasing the rear toe compared to the front will just stabilise the rear of the car a little bit through the faster corners. The suspension setup isn't too dissimilar to what I ran before, a stiffer front end and softer rear, so set the suspension to 37 and 4, and then increase the anti-roll bars to 13 and 10. Higher anti-roll bar setups are better after the handling update, however I still don't think we can run a time trial-esque ARB setup of 21-21 in a race. I've then slightly increased the ride height to 24 and 58 compared to our pre-patch setup. With the brakes, it's now much harder to lock a wheel after the update. This allows us to boost our brake pressure to 100% for most tracks and run a more forward brake bias of 55%. Finally, the tyre pressures are one area that I've adjusted a lot since our pre-patch Bahrain setup. The rear tyres will wear significantly faster around Bahrain compared to the fronts, and this means we should lower the front pressures to a pretty normal setup of 24.5 and 25 psi. However, we have to run our rear pressures at their maximum pressure to reduce tyre wear. This does also eliminate some drag, helping our car become a little bit faster in a straight line. And that will round out our post-patch F124 Bahrain car setup. I'm now moving straight on to Jeddah, so expect that setup video to be released very shortly. And I'm going to try and get through the car setups which I created pre-patch a lot faster so I can then catch up with the season and jump back into, I think it was about Austria where we dropped off before. Oh, and before I go, it is definitely worth saying that this is a race car setup, not a time trial setup. So if you're looking for a performance-focused time trial setup, I'd recommend just going to the leaderboards, downloading the top one, and that would genuinely be pretty fast. But for now, guys, hit that like button if you enjoyed this setup, and I will see you on track.